I have been waiting over a week to share this story with you, and I was waiting for today so that I could share it with anyone who's listening to this episode. So it was wild. Imagine this, okay? So you apply for a project, right? It's a project that I wanted to work on. So I applied for the project. I never spoke to a human being. There was no recruiter. There was no hiring manager. There was no founder. There was no conversation with a human being. Only AI. I mean, how wild is that? And of course, because I love I was like, ooh, this is kind of cool. It was a little weird. So here's what happened. I was applying to be a part of this AI project, which I'm going to get into in a little bit further, but I didn't know that there were no people behind this entire process. So I was able to get a link and it said, "Would you like to start your interview now?" And I'm like, "Wow, these people are really efficient. How is it that they literally just have someone sitting on the computer waiting to interview you?" And I was like, "Oh, but I'm not wearing any makeup. I should probably go and fix." And then I thought, well, let's just do it. So I press yes, let's move to the interview process. And then all of a sudden, this little image appears on the screen in front of me. And that's when I realized, okay, I am now going to be talking to an AI interviewer, but there's more. And it's something that has never happened if you were going to do an interview with a human being in this scenario. So I'm going to get into that. So welcome back, everyone, to a Mindset Medicine podcast. I am your host, Katharine Lucadu. And, this is a show for curious minds, bold thinkers, professionals, entrepreneurs who are navigating business and life. And maybe you are looking for a different perspective. Maybe you are looking to change and shift your mindset because you've been thinking a certain way all these years. If you're completely honest, you know what I'm talking about. You have your mind set on a certain way of doing things. However, because of the way that everything is moving and how quickly things are evolving today, shifting how we think about things, looking at things through a different lens is really, really important right now. So that is what this show is all about. I am a strategist. I'm an innovator. I am a coach. I have been diving into AI formally for probably the last 2.5 years. I wrote a book, AI Secrets for Business, Success, and Life Hacks, which is on Amazon. But I also did my master's degree in educational technology. So this has always kind of been running through my veins for a long, long time. But today we are going to dive into something I personally had never experienced in my life. And that was being interviewed by artificial intelligence for a job, a project, a short-term job, we'll call it. But so many things were running through my mind in like this nanosecond that I was being, I pressed the button. Okay, let's do this interview. So let me walk you through what this was like through my eyes, because that's all I can do. So I decided to apply for a consulting role at the largest AI intelligence company that exists. And they were looking for domain experts I'm not actually allowed to say exactly what I do, but basically we're testing AI and responses and all kinds of things. So I thought, okay, I'll submit my resume. I've got a lot of experience. I wrote a book on AI. I should be a pretty good candidate. And so immediately it says, would you like to take your interview now? And I thought, okay, although I'm not wearing makeup. And if you're a lady listening to this, it's like, I kind of look crappy. Hair is on top of my head. And I thought, okay, let's just do this. So I press yes. And automatically the screen opens and there is an AI voice. And if and you'll see with Katharine AI, if you watch my previous, not my last episode, the previous one where I bring on my AI clone, Katharine Lucadu, Katharine AI, you'll see that it's like a pulsating voice coming through the screen. So that's what this was. So I thought, okay, I've seen this before. Now here's what's interesting. I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how long, you can think of an answer because you don't know what questions are about to be asked. You don't know if you were supposed to prepare something. So I realized within my first 20 seconds of this being recorded, I'm not feeling like I'm just not feeling it. I don't like the way that I started this off. If you pause, the AI just goes to the next question. And it's almost like they think that you don't know how to answer that question. It doesn't really take into account that you're thinking. That's why you're being quiet. And so after about 20 seconds after this first question, and I took a pause to think, and then it automatically jumped to the next question, I was like, oh no, 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 no. This can't go like this. I wasn't happy with the progress. So at the bottom is a button that says, would you like to redo this interview? Oh my goodness. Like, this is a game changer. I want you to think about this really carefully for a moment. So here you are going to an interview for a job, right? And I'm sure many of you, as you are listening to this, you have been through many interviews in your lifetime. As you're sitting there and you realize that maybe, you weren't in the best mood that day. Maybe something happened. Maybe you got a phone call or a text message or an email right before you walked into that interview. And even if it was a virtual interview, doesn't matter. If there was a human being on the other side of you or opposite you, and you weren't feeling at your very best, there is no redo. So this was interesting. So what I did was, yes, I want to redo. And then it asks you, do you want to redo it right now? Or do you want to reschedule for tomorrow or whatever? And I thought, okay, well, if I have these options, what if I go grab a coffee and I reschedule this for 1 hour from now? And that's exactly what I did. So now that my mind has come to the idea that I'm going to be speaking to an AI, all right. Okay, so what are the possible questions that this AI is going to be asking me? Because don't forget, I hadn't prepared that I would be interviewed. I was just like clicking buttons, which we really shouldn't do, right? But this was all new. So I thought, okay, we're going to get this right the second time. So I sat down, I put a little makeup on, had a little coffee, and now I'm ready to go. So I'm like, okay, bring on these questions. The AI tone was polite, very calming, empathetic. Thank you so much, Katharine, for answering that question. How interesting that experience is of yours. Well, what I'd like to do now is go on to this question. And I thought, okay, this is a really pleasant way of interviewing. No, I'm not looking at someone in the eyes, which, you see, that's where today's episode started coming to my mind, because it's really brilliant that you have this second chance to redo. So here's my question to you. Who does this favor? If you are a really great communicator and you've got a really great presence with people and you make a really great first impression, will this type of interview showcase who you are? Do you know what I mean? Because you're speaking to AI, so you're really not having to present yourself in a certain way, right? It's what you say, it's how you say it, it's the words you use. So yes, you still need to be an excellent communicator. Having the right tone, likely because my camera is on, it's still recording how I'm acting. And if you are not used to speaking in front of a camera like I am, and I've been doing it for so many years where I feel comfortable, if you don't feel that same way, will you be awkward? And then is that how the AI will analyze you? Because I'll explain to you how these programs work. Because, of course, once that was done, I went and did a little research, which is where a lot of today's information comes from, because it really intrigued me. As I thought to myself, is this a better way of interviewing people? Would this make them more comfortable to not be in front of another person or less comfortable? I would love to know your thoughts on this. If you're watching this on YouTube, put it in the chat whether you would feel more or less comfortable. And if you're listening to the podcast, again, go into the podcast comments. More or less comfortable being interviewed by AI instead of a human being. So, is this type of interview favoring someone who is tech savvy? And that's almost on purpose because we are moving into, well, we're in it, an AI dominated world. I mean, look around you. The watch, the phone, smart appliances, smart thermostats, all of that is artificial intelligence. We just don't realize it most of the time. When you're talking to Google on your phone or Siri. I'm saying it quietly so all of my things don't all of a sudden come alive. But when you ask for something to one of these AIs, they're all AI driven. So we are already in it. So could this be almost like it's filtering out the people who can actually do this, be interviewed by AI and still be comfortable doing it? Or are you filtering out the human qualities that we once valued so much during an interview, during communication, the chemistry, the energy between two people? And again, there's the flip side of that. What if you've walked into an interview before and the person in front of you is so intimidating, or they have this look on their face and you're like, oh my God, this is not going to go well, and you already know it? Have you ever felt that walking into an interview? I've gone through so many interviews in my life, whether it was in the education sector. I've had to interview in front of panels of people, especially in university. It's not one person who's hiring you. There is an entire panel of people who are questioning you. And each one of those people has a separate personality and character. So there you are trying to answer questions and you're hoping that you are resonating with these people. Well, none of that is needed here when an AI is actually analyzing your verbal and nonverbal communication, how you're speaking, the quality of your answers, the word usage, the tone, and so on. So let's move on. Okay. Let's talk about this big picture for a moment, because yes, that was a very cool instance. The thing is that this isn't going to be an instance. This is the direction that everything is going. So AI powered hiring platforms are not a niche a niche instance anymore. Companies, and I'll name some of the companies so you know that they are actually out there. HireVue, uh, Pymetrics, Modern Hire are all doing this at scale for many other larger companies. So here is what they're doing when you are being um, interviewed. Here's what's going on. Your facial expressions are being analyzed. Your vocal tone, your language choice, even your cognitive function, your intelligence. How quickly are you answering the questions? Are you taking time not to answer the question? Or is there too much of a pause that you actually don't even answer the question altogether? And when I did my first interview, because I actually applied for 3 different projects. So, interview number 1, oh my gosh, so awkward. And when I missed one of the first questions because I was thinking, the AI is like, "Okay, thank you so much. Let's move on to the next question." And it starts saying to the AI, I'm like, "Oh, no, wait. I haven't answered the question." Didn't matter. Wasn't registered. So the second interview I did was so much better. And then the third one, I was like, "I've got this." What's interesting is the questions are not typical. So here I was being interviewed for a domain expert position, but the questions were about my morning routine. How do I stay focused? Um, what type of activities do I do to keep my energy up? So they're really digging into the person rather than the job, which is a really good way to interview, because if you can interview for the right person and you already know that they have a great education and you can see the skills on their resume, then it's really the character and the person that you're interviewing for, I guess, depending on what that job entails. So, according to a 2023 report by the Society for Human Resource Management, nearly 1 in 4 organizations now use some form of AI for talent acquisition. So now in mid 2025, now, of course, this report is 2023. I'm pretty sure we're probably at about 40 to 50% at this point, mid 2025. By the end of this year, I am sure there are more HR companies, departments, and so on that will be adopting AI to a far greater extent. The Harvard Business Review reported that AI interviews can reduce bias, but only if the algorithms are trained with diverse data. Think about that for a minute, right? AIs are trained. So they can either amplify bias if they haven't been trained properly, or they are trained to be diverse and understand innuendo, understand accent, understand the way and the tone of voice in answering a question. Think about around the world. All interviews are not conducted the same way. So an AI would need to understand all of these contexts. A study by NYU's AI Now Institute found that most AI hiring tools are black box systems, meaning that even if HR don't fully understand how decisions are made, the answers are in this black box, which will then be interpreted by the AI and give the answers that are actually needed. So we're using tools now that may feel like they're more fair, but we can't explain how they work. And so, what makes this more complex is that some candidates for jobs will love this. They're going to think it's great. They don't have a human being in front of them. They're not feeling nervous. They think they'll be able to feel more themselves. And I'm telling you, by the second interview, I was feeling like that. I felt very free. I was talking and I was free to move my hands however much I wanted. I was okay if the AI interpreted it like that. However, there will be other people, and do you fall into this category where you feel like you're performing for a machine and it's really cold and detached? And that if you are being too human, like me talking with my hands, that will be filtered out because the AI is being trained to simply pull out what it's looking for, and nothing else makes a difference. So, which one's right? What is the better way? To be interviewed by AI, or to be interviewed by a human being? Or do we want a blend of both of them? So think about this for a minute. In a world where AI is interviewing you, it's scoring you on a rubric of how well you have performed. It's ranking you as in, okay, well, candidate 3 answered this question better than candidate 2. It's an interesting way to look at the candidate. We'll take myself, for example, looking for this particular position, which was very detailed, which required knowledge and skill. So, where then does the human edge come into play in one of these interviews? What then makes us memorable to an AI? So that's what's interesting. Maybe that's what we need to be investigating a little more. If this is what's going to be the driving force behind interviewing techniques from now on, then I think it's important that people understand what is it that will make them memorable. Think about this. On social media today, we understand that there are algorithms. We understand that if we put an image on Instagram along with the post, that, of course, will help that post gain some traction. The more vivid the image, the more humanistic and emotional the image, the greater reaction the post will get. However, if you move over to LinkedIn, the better written post will get more engagement, will get more likes, will likely get more comments because people are going to LinkedIn to read articles, to read posts, not necessarily for the pretty pictures. So we know that LinkedIn has this algorithm, Facebook has this algorithm, TikTok has its own algorithm for posting short form video. So, what is the algorithm as a candidate interviewing for a job now? What is that algorithm that the AI is trying to get? Where is the defining factor between people? So, the big shift now is not in who's asking the questions, but it's in how well we can perform to an AI where there is no human being behind it. So, in the past, where you would show up and you were dressed to the nines in a suit, beautiful clothing, hair is done nicely, makeup is on, pretty purse, nice briefcase, whatever the case is. And maybe you even have documents with you and you're showcasing yourself. You're selling yourself to the interviewer. What if you have to remove all of that and it's just you? What does that mean now? Would you still get that job if it's just comes down to you, who you are, what you've been doing, how well you answer questions that are not anticipated questions? If you were being asked the same questions I was about your morning routine and about how you direct your energy and how you go through your day and what would make you leave the company, not get hired with the company, how good are you in answering questions that are not anticipated? Because what I've noticed over the years is many people will practice interview and they have these very cookie cutter answers to questions. When I owned my brokerage and I would be hiring agents, it was like the same interview over and over. And then once I started changing up the questions and started rattling people a little bit, that's where the authentic character comes out. And now you know who you're hiring. So if AI says to you, you didn't pass, how would that make you feel? Of course, that's not actually the way it happens. AI is very polite once the interview is done. Thank you so much. Please move on to the next page now, which are typically written answers to some questions. You'll never really know where you ranked in one of these AI interviews. You'll just know whether you got the job or you didn't. And it's just going to be a shift in how you perceive getting that job or not, and how well you can start preparing yourself for interviews like this with unexpected questions, but also at the same time, maybe you'll want to look at the way that you are living your daily routine. Are you that 360 rounded person, meaning that you are taking care of your health? You do have this morning routine that is there to energize you and to help you. And are you up leveling your skills? Because I think that these are the questions that are going to be asked as we move forward, not the old fashioned questions that were very cut and dry. Without realizing it. So here are some of these thoughts that I've been having since this interview. So without realizing it, are we starting to perform for machines and technology rather than just showing up as ourselves? Think about this for a minute. I just realized this now. There's like this paradox, right? So we put the best highlights of our life on social media. And here's a filter and I look beautiful and everything's perfect. And I got this new car and I got this new house and I ate this wonderful dinner. Okay. Highlight reels of our life. And then we come to something like an AI interview and all of that is stripped away. And now it's just you. Maybe we've been doing it wrong all along. Maybe this is the way that we should be going. What do you think? The other question is, are we losing the spark to be the human that we are, right? Talk with our hands and have facial expressions and have difference of tone in our voice when we're excited, when we're upset, and so on? Are we losing that if we're just going to be speaking to machines? And are we thinking for ourselves, or are we letting the machine think for us? So many questions today. Oh my God. Well, so now I'm going to play devil's advocate because this is how my mind works. It goes to what I see, what I perceive, and then okay, well then what's the devil's advocate part? How do we flip the script here for a moment? Well, how do we flip the script? Could AI in fact be better at spotting great talent than a human being is? If we were to flip the table, okay? And now you are the interviewer of the job. What if you're having a bad day? What if you just got a terrible text message or email or horrible phone call? And then this new candidate walks into the office that you're expected to perform now, act like everything's fine, but yet behind the scenes, everything's falling apart in your life or in your job, or maybe you're the owner of a company and you're expected to do it all and you're feeling overwhelmed. And here's just one more thing that has been stacked on your plate today that you have to interview someone who may or may not even have been worth the time to interview. I've been there. With all of those factors in place, could you believe that it might be better for an AI who doesn't have all of that crap to deal with and then interview someone and expect that some of that isn't going to be transmitted to that person that I'm interviewing? Or because I'm having a bad day, that candidate who may actually be wonderful just doesn't resonate because my thinking is foggy, because I'm in overwhelm, or because I'm thinking about something else. Have you ever been talking to someone, you've got so much on your mind that you cannot fully focus and tune in on what they're saying? And it's like you go somewhere else, you come back, and you're like, oh my gosh, they've literally been talking for 2 minutes and I only heard half of what they say. Probably half of the husbands listening to this podcast know what I'm talking about. But that's my point, is that there's so much that a human being may not catch during an interview that the AI would. So let's think about this for a minute. The AI doesn't get tired. It is not evaluating on its emotional feelings. It's not evaluating based on what kind of day it's had. It evaluates based on patterns and not emotion. It isn't biased by a bad mood, by a messy resume that has maybe spelling mistakes in it, or a nervous laugh, or maybe someone who is just socially awkward, but maybe they're really good at what they do. And what if we could train the AI well enough that maybe it could see potential more clearly and faster than a distracted recruiter ever could? But of course, there's always a catch. And potential, a human being's potential, isn't always in what they say. It's how they connect with people, right? Are they a fit for the culture of the company? What happens when the conversation goes off script? So maybe they start talking about their kids. Maybe they're talking about the last vacation they went on, right? That's rapport. The AI has no interest in any of that whatsoever, unless it is a scheduled question to ask. And what if that off script question that was asked completely changes the energy in the room? What if the human being who showed up to the interview was extremely nervous, but then all of a sudden there was this icebreaker, and now they come out, they're funny, they're warm, they're friendly, they're smart, and all of that came out because of one question or maybe one remark that the recruiter asked them. And none of that would be unveiled if it were AI. So it's an interesting space we're in right now, isn't it? Because we are caught at the moment between two worlds. We have the human world of human cognition, human intelligence, emotions, creativity. And then we have the other side where that's not important. What's important are skill and algorithm and how well you function, and which is great for some jobs. So we are now designing systems, which is why I'm in this project, because we are training AI to understand things, to be more human understanding. We still want people to ask themselves, how do I retain who I am in a world of technology? How do I retain my human intelligence, my emotional intelligence, my human intelligence? How do I retain it all in this world, in these two worlds that are colliding? So, whether you are applying for a job now or maybe in the future because AI has come into the company that you've been working at and it is more efficient to be using AI than a human being, it's going to happen. I'm sorry to say it, but it is, which is why upskilling and diversifying your skills is really important right now. You don't need to fear AI, but you do need to understand it. And like I said, having the ability to redo that interview that I went on, I was able to shift my perspective on what an interview is very quickly within an hour, right? Recalibrate. Okay, this is an AI interview. Questions will be this. Don't hesitate. Answer clearly. It was sort of like this criteria that I was giving myself that I understand because I understand how an AI works. And I understand that it's going to be answer based. I need to really create those good answers before I speak them. Understanding what AI is good at, and this is where the understanding part comes in. Understand what it's good at. Understand what it's not good at. Where does AI excel and where does it stumble? And you need to be aware of where your strengths are as a human being, where they're not, where AI can take over like manual tasks and all these different things that we can do with AI right now. I mean, it's just I couldn't even give you a list right now. It's actually unlimited. But what's really important is to remember that your original thinking, your presence, your energy, your clarity, your emotions, that belongs to you as a human being. Don't hand that over so easily. I have started a new company called Noases. And Noases is this real understanding of things. It's an ancient Greek word. And I love this word because when you have a real understanding of things, then no matter how many changes and how many different directions the world can go, you still have your innate original thinking. You are evolving your intelligence. You are adapting to the changes in the world, but you're not losing it. You're not handing it over. And what I'm seeing today is a lot of people are handing over their intelligence as a trade for easy from AI. And let me give you an example. Social media is full of it, meaning instead of a person now thinking about what do I want to post today? What do I want? What message do I want to share with the world today? They go on to ChatGPT, write me something that I can post on social media today. They barely review it. They barely change it up to make it sound like them, and then they just post it. It reads like AI. It doesn't have the same humanistic qualities that posts from 3 years ago have. You may say, but I don't like the way that I write. I don't think I'm great at writing. You may not think you're great at it, but it's still who you are. So every time we are using AI to formulate our own thoughts, and you're not editing that, I have no problem using AI to help me generate ideas, to help me generate blogs. But what I do is I then go back in and I edit the entire thing to make sure it still sounds like Katharine. Has this episode enlightened you today? Has it stirred something in you? Maybe it's made you angry. Maybe it's made you upset for the way things are going. Maybe you're thinking, this is actually kind of cool. And I'm really excited about where this is all going. Neither of these ways, how you're feeling right now, are right or wrong. They're just how you feel right now. But by having curiosity and by understanding this is just how things are, this is the direction that we are going, it may just start to help you to rethink how you've been thinking about life and the way things are done. We have a traditional set of thinking skills that have been ingrained in us since we were in school, primary school, high school. It doesn't mean that that is the correct way of thinking. It's just that was the way of thinking for that period of time. We are now in a different time. So it's time to up-level our thinking and adapt to this age of automation and understand what it means to still retain who you are in this age of automation. And that is what I created my company, Noasees. I have courses and coaching in helping people to communicate, use human intelligence in work, in life, and not give it away. Use AI to make life easier, to enhance tasks, to enhance the way you do things, for time management. But we still want you to stay human and relevant and not hand that part over. So here is my final question to you today. Would you rather be AI optimized or human aligned with what's happening in the world? In the future of work right now, it is not going to be either or. It is about knowing the difference between when we automate and when we are aligned, human, in a human aspect to life. Please make sure that you Share this episode if you know that there are people out there who are having, let's say, trouble really embracing AI. Show them this episode, let them hear it and the direction that things are going so that they do have an understanding that it's okay to feel uncomfortable during a time when everything's changing, but it's not okay to ignore these shifts. I hope you like this episode. I'm okay if you found it to be a little provocative to your thinking. I'm okay if you are angry at the direction that life is going. That's understandable. That's what happens when we are in a world that is changing every second. I mean, the AI innovations that are happening every single day are phenomenal, but they're fast and they're actually happening faster than was originally anticipated because there is so much competition out there in the world today. So have a wonderful rest of your week. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to know what you thought about this episode. Do you find it fascinating? Are you worried? And I'm just going to keep bringing you the interesting things that I'm encountering week over week as I dive into this AI driven world. And I hope that you will be along the ride with me.